Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. Today we are taking a look at my complete run in Moons Out Goons Out 2024, generously sponsored by TNVC, Tactical Night Vision Company. This is going to be my run in the active division where I used a high point C9 carbine and a BE Meyers MAWL. Our first stage is the medical one, brought to you by Refuge Medical. Run up to the dummy.
Shooter down, tourniquet, right leg.
And the ROs will tell you which limb you have to tourniquet. The dummy is wearing his tourniquet in his chest rig, so take it off of him, apply it. You have the choice here of refocusing your nods or using irises to be able to focus on what you're doing. I've done enough tourniquets that I was pretty comfortable doing this just by feel. So everything looks pretty blurry to me here, but I felt it actually went really smoothly. Now, once we get the tourniquet completely effectively attached, then we're going to grab a magazine of ammunition out of the dummy's chest rig. That's 28 rounds of frangibles. And we're going to grab the dummy's rifle, which is an iron-sighted AR carbine, and you have to then proceed to clear a blind shoot house. There are 8 steel targets. Each one requires 2 hits, and you have 28 rounds of ammunition. Now, the second target is the farthest one, and I sucked at this. I was unable to hit it, despite a lot of trying. And I ended up blowing a lot of my ammunition right at the beginning. That one gave me a lot of confidence. I got that guy, and then I just whiffed it on this one. So I ended up getting, I believe, 6 penalties on this because I just ran out of ammunition before I cleared all of the targets. So I don't have any footage of the inside because this was a blind stage. It was a fun stage. It just didn't go all that well for me, as you can tell by my score there. All right, our second stage is pretty unanimously the favorite stage of the whole match for everyone. This is Trenches of Ukraine. The One Shepherd guys up at Echo Valley built a fairly long trench here by competition stage standards. There are 6 shooting port slash bunker sort of positions in it, and there are a series of targets positioned out in the woods. You have to get 3 hits on each target from each position. Maneuvering through the trench here as you go. Now, each of the targets is identified by a chem light, so you can see them here in the footage. You saw the green one there. And this was a fantastic stage for the MAWL for me. Like I said, I was using a BE Meyers MAWL on the high point. The high point was a terrible gun. The MAWL is a fantastic laser. My theory going into this match is that the gun didn't really actually matter that much, that what was important was being able to identify and engage the targets. And as we'll see over the course of these stages, I came away largely incorrect on that. Like, the fundamental basis is valid, but I overestimated how important the gun really was. So you already saw me take some time, and I'm going to take some more time here to change magazines. We are, by the way, retaining all magazines and personal gear. You get a 60-second penalty if you leave anything behind. And that's primarily a logistical rule, so we're not trying to pick up people's stuff in the dark. But I have issues here trying to make sure that the magazine is fully seated. This was probably my biggest issue with the high point carbine, is the mags sit flush, and when the bolt's closed and the mag's full, it can be actually kind of difficult to make sure that the magazines are all the way engaged. Otherwise, they'll kind of stay in the gun, but when you rack the bolt, you won't actually chamber around. And that's what I'm having trouble with here, trying in the dark to determine if I have a malfunction or just I haven't fully seated the magazine. I'd get used to this and a little better about fixing it over the course of the rest of the match, but it was a huge problem for me that took a lot of time away from stages like this one. Now, once I had the gun up and running, the MAWL made this stage super easy. You can see I'm using the illuminator here. It was like, the illuminator on the MAWL is fantastic. It's, to me at least, it's a really good combination of focus and intensity. It made it really easy to see the targets, and then the laser hits them. And the way the MAWL is set up, you've got 2 buttons, which essentially you can set up to be 1 button for laser and illuminator and 1 button for laser only. So in this, I'm using both. It's one nice, easy button press that allows you to engage everything you need to properly clear the target. Now, I'm using 10-round magazines here. This is a stock 9mm high point carbine. I do have a Carbon Research suppressor on it, which is a pretty cool suppressor. It's very light. It's effective. It didn't give me any trouble. But those high point 10-round single stack magazines were a huge limitation. I did try before the match to use some of the Red Ball 20 rounders, but with the 147 grain ammo I'm using, the 20 round magazines just didn't work at all. I was getting multiple malfunctions per mag, and that was clearly not going to be viable. So I went back to 10 round mags. As you can hear here, I'm able to see the target pretty quickly once I get in position and then hit it pretty quickly. Typically bang, 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 3 hits on target. And we're back to the first position here, my last set of shots. Overall, I consider this a huge success because I did it under par. Par time is 240 seconds for all the stages, right almost exactly middle of the pack for this stage. So now let's go on to the next one. This is Meth Lab in the Woods, brought to you by Varusteleka. And this is a pretty cool shoot house. You start with a flashbang, which I totally whiff and chuck under the edge of the thing. And then you have a total of 8 targets inside the shoot house to engage. 2 hits each. There are game cameras set up in here, so you get IR flashes as you're going through. This was really easy for me with the high point, with the exception of, again, reloading at a 10-round mag here. One of our targets, by the way, was positioned nice and low, deliberately to try and get people to not notice it and not hit it. You can see the flashing here from the IR camera going on and off, which honestly didn't turn out to be the distraction, at least for me, that I anticipated. Now, once you cleared the shoot house, you went out back and there was a 100-yard target that you had to engage 3 times each from 3 different positions. This whole stage went really smoothly for me. I didn't need any sort of sighting system inside the house. Paper targets at 2 or 3 meters distance were just fine to point shoot, unlike the previous shoot house. And then the MAWL and the illuminator made this steel target super easy to see. So I got my hits quickly, no big deal, 68.5 seconds. This is one of my best stages on the run. And this is one where the gun really didn't hurt me. Stage 6 is our Field of Destroyed Dreams, sponsored by BE Meyers, the manufacturers of the MAWL. In fact, the MAWL that I am running here is a loaner from BE Meyers. It is their full power military version, although honestly, I never had any need to engage the full power mode. It's got a nice, easy, adjustable switch that allows you to go from low to medium to high power. The civilian MAWL is identical to the military one, except without the high power mode. And honestly, I never use the high power mode here. That's more a sort of like signaling for air assets kind of deal. And at least for our engagements here, low and medium were perfectly adequate. In fact, high power would have been a disadvantage. Anyway, the idea of this stage is basically marksmanship. Can you hit a 100-yard target consistently? Because there's a lot of engagements. This is, I believe, 36 or 38 required hits. We've got 2 silhouette targets out at 100 yards. You shoot them through the VTAC, and then you have to shoot them through the square holes on this section of range obstacles. So I've made 10 hits, which means I'm now reloading the gun again and again and again, still having trouble with getting magazines seated consistently. The trigger on the high point is also kind of atrocious. Actually, it's really atrocious. It's just straight up bad. And so there's an issue here, a bit of an issue of I'm holding the laser on target while I'm trying to gently press the trigger until it breaks, which requires a much longer, steadier hold than it would with any sort of proper, reasonable modern trigger. That said, I really, again, I had no trouble making hits here. You can see I'm not using the illuminator on this stage because those 2 targets were nicely visible through the night vision without needing an illuminator. In fact, I suspect an illuminator would have actually made things a bit worse, at least for me, because it would have cast some shadows and potentially flooded out those targets. Instead, all I have to do is put the dot on the target and pull the trigger. It goes really smoothly. I'm not trying to look down the gun. I'm aiming over the top of the barricade. Like, this was a great stage for me. It worked really well, with the exception of having to reload those stupid 10-round mags. So in general, where I'm thinking that the gun doesn't matter, what I didn't think about, what I miscalculated on that was the ergonomics do matter. The trigger did make a difference. The reloading every 10 rounds was a real penalty, especially maintaining the empty magazines. Just oof. This is one of the stages where it doesn't hurt me quite as much as some others, but I definitely could have gotten a much better time had I had 30-round magazines and only had to reload once over the course of this stage. Really, the MAWL saved my bacon here. The MAWL made it easy and fast enough to make those hits that it did minimize the disadvantage of the gun. So I'm all the way back at the barricade here. We got to get hits from the edge of the barricade and then from two of the holes. Predictably, I have emptied another magazine. Time to reload it again. And by the way, I was toasty warm this whole time. Our temperatures ranged from the mid 20s to the low 30s, and I was wearing a 3-layer combination of Varusteleka cold weather gear, their underlayer, their loft layer, and then their wool shell, and it was fantastically cozy. So 214 seconds, no penalties, a little above the halfway point. I'm really happy with this, especially for using a high point. The next stage, Stage 8, the Circle of Doom, sponsored by Q, whose rifle I will use in the next video that you see. This was a stage that didn't work out quite as well as we had originally intended. So the intention is to have a stage that's dependent on you reading information in night vision. And I really like that concept, and we're going to repeat it again next year. We're just going to execute it a bit better. What you have to do is flip over a mine, read the instructions, and then run into the blind 360-degree bay, follow the instructions as directed, and then you come out and do the same thing a second time with a second mine. Now, I had a bit of an advantage here in that I understood the concept of the stage pretty well. What I also did is actually I was able to listen to the RO describing the instructions for some of the other shooters, and I had a good understanding of what our targets were. By the way, also turning on the laser helps before you get out to the stage, pro tip there. So I took off before the RO was completely done reading me the instructions, because I recognized that the important part of the instructions was just at the very beginning. The second half was consistent across all of them. The second half is hit the popper, and then you have to get a high value shot on the small silhouette right there. High value shot, by the way, is you drop the magazine, you then have 1 round to make the hit, and if you miss, you get a penalty. You don't get to reload whether you hit or miss, and what that means is the gun is completely empty. Because you dropped the mag and you fired the 1 chambered round, the gun is now considered a stick, and you don't have to obey the 180-degree safety rule, which means you can run back out to the beginning of the stage without any trouble. So we're going to focus in on this again. Try it. I couldn't read it, essentially. So what we did at this point is we were calling out to the RO the number on there, and the RO would then read us the stage requirements. Like I said, this started a little bit different in testing, and once we had a couple state squads run through the match, it developed some issues. It became very difficult to read the instructions, so we changed it up a bit for later shooters. This run, by the way, is all done during the staff match the night before all the main competitors come out. So a few little tweaks like that that are different from what the main population of the match experienced. Well, once again, this time I have a different set of engagements on the poppers. Or on the spinners. I have to reload the gun and get it up and running. You can see there, that's the illuminator. I did opt to use the illuminator and the laser for this one, made it a little bit easier to spot the targets. Note that on this OPSIN footage, the OPSIN does a really bad job of handling dynamic range, and so for me in the night vision, it was a little bit clearer instead of this totally washed out white spot. That's sort of an artifact of the OPSIN. So there's my third. This one was I had to hit the top plate on each of the 3 spinners, or 4 spinners, and of course reload again because 10-round magazines. So that takes a nice bit of time, and then find the spinner again, hit that, and then hit a popper, and then a high value shot for the last little silhouette. I, again, did really well on this one, 14th overall. Very happy with that, although this stage will be done better next year. All right, the Oh No Not Again course, the O course, the obstacle course. This is brought to you by Brownells, who sponsored some cool prizes for our table, and Gorilla Ammo, who sponsored this match by providing myself and Jordan, my assistant, with the ammunition to run the stage to run the match through the main match. You'll see that on our next video. Now, the purpose here, we took the obstacle course at the Echo Valley Training Center, and we threw about 36 or 38 shots into it. There is only one target. It's at, I think, about 150 yards there, 125 maybe. And you have to hit it twice from every shooting position. And there are a bunch of them. There are a bunch of high value targets as well. You'll notice I have the bipod deployed on the high point here. I put it on there, not really sure if it would be relevant at all. By the way, there we go. First mag already expended. This stage I did find use for the bipod. Instead of firing offhand, I figured it's a long target. We're just going to rest the gun on the ground to help hold it stable, make hits. This was slow going. The high point is not a bad gun in many ways. It is a bad gun in other ways, but it's not the world's most accurate thing. And while I generally was able to get my hits here, the stabilization was nice. It definitely helped. So this is one of my high value shots. It's also, yeah, and I missed it. It's also worth pointing out here that you'd think resting the gun on the bipod and just having to maneuver the laser onto target would be pretty quick and easy. It's actually not necessarily, because unless you practice that a lot, it's not the most obvious natural movement compared to putting it on your shoulder and sighting down the rifle to get it on target. So I have to make some hits from the top of the platform. Here, I'm just basically sitting down, got the carbine in front of me, make a couple hits. There we go, easy. Pull the mag, we have another high value shot. Again, this is just to safe the guns because we're doing these high value shots on the obstacle course before climbing up or down anything and before going through our tunnel here. Is this a particularly difficult obstacle course? No, not necessarily, but it certainly gets more difficult when it's basically 30 degrees out. It is probably about 2 in the morning at this point. You've been shooting for for 4 hours now, and it's dark, and you're wearing nods. So I think this stage turned out really quite well. Pretty happy with it. Not maybe as happy with my own performance because this is all taking me too long. A lot of unloading and reloading to make these high value shots. The unloading and reloading is a lot more time consuming with the high point than it would be with a proper, more modern gun. So the MAWL makes the hitting easy. The high point makes the gun manipulations difficult, more difficult than they should be. We got it. This is, we upped, compared to last year, we upped the stage length from 3-minute par times to 4 minutes so that we could increase the round count. There we go. Here's another issue I have. Magazine wasn't quite seated, so I racked it, pulled the trigger, got a click, had to reseat the mag, re-rack it, etc. So, I'm losing 5 seconds here, 10 seconds there, and that really adds up until the point that you run out of 240 seconds of par time before you actually finish the stage. There we go, another hit. Now back over to the walls for the last, I believe, 6 or 8 of them. And spoiler alert here, I am going to run out of time and par out. Everything about this, like too much time setting up shots. I probably should have opted to do this offhand, but I didn't. And I end up parring out here with 11 targets left to go. So 660 seconds of penalties on the stage for me. Hooray. All right, we are now looping back to stage 1, the VAC Shuffle, sponsored by AGM. They do a bunch of cool thermal scopes, one of which I will be using in my next run in the main match. So this stage was also slightly simplified from its original design after some testing. If you've watched Brassfac's video on it, you can see what it was originally supposed to be, and he went and broke it. Realized if he broke it, other people were going to break it too. So we simplified the stage to a pair of VTACs on the range, and you had to get 4 hits through each of 2 holes and off the edge of the VTAC, then run to the other, repeat, run back, repeat. So a total of 36 hits. In theory, this should be very simple. Like, how hard could it be? There's just 2 targets. There's a static popper on the left, and there's a silhouette on the right. And in our lighting conditions, that left side target was just really pretty hard to find. I was able to make hits on it here, but not nearly as quickly as I should have. And then, of course, the 10-round magazines come back to bite me again. Keep in mind, with 30-something hits, this will require, with misses, a solid 4 reloads on a single stage on a gun that's relatively slow to reload. So the full-size silhouette would, and that's doubly true if I still don't manage to get the thing seated right. So the target on the right was was easier to see. It wasn't that big of a deal. It's interesting. Last year, we had a similar stage on this same bay, and last year for me, it was the right side target that was very difficult to see, not the left. The MAWL helped here, but even it made it difficult. Even it was difficult. The targets are not painted. They are background colored, and that does make a difference at night as well as during the day. There we go, another magazine emptied. So I'm just really struggling to make hits here. And remember, finishing off the shots from this barricade like that, that's 1/3 of the required stage done. So we had the extended par times, 242nd par times, in order to increase the round count. And that was really good for some of the people who shot this very well, who had better skills and better equipment. It made the stage longer and more fun for them. It meant for people who were handicapped, like me here, or just sucked, like me here, this is one of those stages that just kept going and going and going and going. You get through this, like, okay, I've reloaded 4 times and I'm maybe halfway done if I'm lucky. You know, how long does this go? You can see me still, again, struggling to get the gun reloaded. Sometimes it would fire to actual slide lock, and the high point does hold itself open. And then that was generally easier. It was a little easier to get the mag seated, but still not a guarantee. The laser definitely made things more feasible for me here, insofar as I didn't have to actually get down behind the gun. Anyone shooting in the passive division, they don't have a laser, don't have an illuminator to work with, and they're going to have to get their eye down below some of these lower holes, which can be tricky with a helmet and nods and a gun in a weird position, which is actually part of the fun of running a match like this, having challenges that are perhaps a little more challenging than what you would set up for yourself at regular range practice. Anyway, this stage is just dragging, and it's not going so well here. I am about to run out of time. I finally managed to make the hits. These hits, by the way, are all, you're not allowed to double tap, so you have to shoot sweeps. You need 4 hits total, and it has to be left, right, or right, left, right, left. There we go. Out of time, 1,080 seconds of penalties. This is about half of my penalties for the entire match, so that really killed me. And now we come to Stage 2, Hot Extraction by Virginia Citizens Armory. This was for my squad, our last stage of the match, and it was a really good one to end on, because this is a super fun stage. This is the shooting from the back of a moving Humvee stage. Now we start next to the Humvee. You have to make 6 hits on a pair of silhouettes there. Now I'm going to go ahead and proactively reload, because I've just fired something like 7 rounds out of 10 total available. You then hand your rifle up to the RO in the Humvee, and you have to drag the dummy a set distance. So there's a little, you can just see it there in the top left. There's a little chem light indicating how far I have to drag the dummy out. We're going to drag him. This alternated back and forth. So some people got to drag the dummy downhill. Some people had to drag the dummy uphill. We considered fair, decided against it. Once you've got the dummy in position, you come back to the Humvee, hop on board, and the Humvee will start moving. Once the Humvee is driving, you can dump as many rounds as you like at those 2 silhouette targets. And every hit you get is a 5-second bonus. That's fun. It's always, shooting from the back of a moving vehicle is always fun. I think I was able to get 1 or 2 here. I only fired 10 rounds though, because once I've emptied the first magazine, it's going to take me long enough to reload it. By the time I have another magazine ready, we have reached right here, the end of the free fire portion. Then hand your rifle off to the RO to go around a bit of a corner before he hands it back. And the main section of this for the shooting on the move is driving past a series of pistol bays where there are a couple of falling poppers in each bay. And as the vehicle goes past, you can engage those poppers. These were hard to see. You can see one of them there. It takes me a minute to figure out where it is. Start doing some shooting. And as you see, I managed to hit that one, which was a really good start, but luck was not going to stay with me. Well, skill was not going to stay with me through the rest of this. That's my 10 rounds expended. So now I have to reload stash the mag, and then reload. And so I basically don't have much opportunity to shoot on about half of these. So this is our third bay of them. I hit that one, but actually did not, sadly, knock it down. So I'm going to proactively reload one more time, and the last section of this stage is to hop off the Humvee, run up to a VTAC, and get a number of hits on a static target. That set's pretty easy. So that rounds up my High Point and MAWL run through Moons Out Goons Out 2024. This was fun. I thought I would do better than this. I had 2,100 seconds in penalties, putting me at 78th place overall, 70th of 101 shooters in the active division. So that's my stage run here. Stay tuned for my other stage run with a Q boombox and a thermal scope. And of course, while this has been commentary on this run, I also have a video with specific highlights, takeaways, and lessons learned. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.